Get your brushes out, because it's about to get a little hairy. The Even Better series is back. If you're new here, first of all, hi, welcome. I'm so glad you decided to be here. But the Even Better series is a series of videos I do on my channel focused on little tweaks and little tricks on how you can level up your art without learning a whole bunch of new anatomy or rendering skills. I tend to keep these videos fairly early stage so you don't have to be an incredible artist or very good at rendering the things that we talk about. I specifically designed these videos so that you can use it on any style, color palette, or proportions that you like. So all through August on my Patreon series called Art and Chill, we looked at hair. We started with very straight, basic hair and moved our way up to extremely coily type 4 hair, and then we also did some braids and buns and hairdos like that. Now that series was literally 4.5 hours long. There is no way I can condense all of that into a video for you guys today. So today we're mostly going to focus on type 1 hair, which is quite straight and quite shiny and smooth. But if you are interested in more tutorials on maybe how to paint curls or how to paint braids without painting every single knot in the braid, let me know in the comments below and I'll put one together for you guys. As always, if you enjoyed this video and find it helpful, then please do let me know by giving it a big thumbs up and leave a comment below. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell if you like me and my content and want to see more of it in the future. Also, just a quick reminder, the next couple of videos on this channel are gonna be Adjustment Layer, which is the series where I take a look at some of your art and paint over it and give tips and maybe turn that into a tutorial. So if that's something you want to put your name in the hat for, then come join the Discord, the link is in the video description. Alright, here are 4 tips to even better hair. So here's a pretty simple character that I've been painting this week. It's just a quick little bust to paint some hair on. I used a couple of different references, kind of blended them into one. By the way, that is something I talk about in my 2 videos about using photo references. I'll have them linked up in the cards. I will also be using some hair texture brushes later in the list, and I've linked my favorite free hair texture brushes down below if you guys want to grab them too. But yeah, we're starting with a pre-painted head, so let's go ahead and take a look at the 4 steps. When starting out with hair, the very first thing you want to do is block in a silhouette. Since this character is just going to have straight hair, we're going to grab a regular pressure size flat round brush, essentially a line art brush, but with a bigger diameter. I have the head on its own layer, separate from the background. I'm going to create a layer underneath the head, so in between the head and the background, grab a dark shadow tone and start creating a silhouette. I think I want her hair to be dark and in like a long bob, so I'm just gonna rough in a silhouette that kind of ends around her collarbone. Don't worry too much if the ends look weird at the moment, we'll go in and fix them in just a second. Now let's create a layer above the head and start to place in the majority of the hair. I actually want to give her a nice little side swooped fringe because I've been watching Parks and Rec and have the biggest crush on Ann Perkins, but I'm gonna justify it by saying this will give us a nice length variation, and we can also take a look at how tiny locks of hair behave. So now, as you can obviously tell, it is all too static and the ends look weird and pointy. Hair doesn't ever do that unless you gel it into spikes, but this is sadly not 2002. I found that the easiest way to fix this is to grab my magic brush. I have it in the description, you can grab it for free, but it's pretty easy to DIY. Basically just a hard round brush with opacity and flow set to pen pressure. So the harder you press, the more opaque it is. I like to take this brush and flick out the very bottom edge of the hair. It adds enough color to even out those spikes, but it's also transparent enough to create some movement down there. Almost like the hair was so flowy when this picture was taken that the ends appear blurry. So this is what we have after step 1. This step is super simple. We're just gonna map in a band of highlight to go across the hair, but it is the placement of this highlight that can make or break the form of your hair, because you always want to place this band where the hair is kind of bending. So up here, for instance, the hair grows straight up from the root, but then it gets weighed down due to weight and gravity, causing it to have a very strong bend as it starts to grow down towards the shoulders. This area is where you'd see the most light reflection, since the hair strands are not cohesive enough for light to pass all the way through. Wherever the hair is parted, unless it's been like gelled down real tight, you'll likely see this little bump. Hair naturally always grows perpendicularly out of the skull before being bent downwards. However, another place you'll find this band of light is often at the very ends of the hair, especially if it's like rolled inwards while blow drying, which is the look we're going for here. So I'm just gonna paint in a band of light just above the very tips of the hair to give it that little bend as well. Now, since the hair here is super smooth, you'll likely also see some specularity in the body of the hair, so I'm just lightly gonna airbrush a few areas randomly. I know it looks bizarre right now, but it will make sense in step 3. For now, this is what we're left with after step number 2. Now, this is where the magic really happens, and this is where we're gonna need those hair texture brushes. The ones that I love and have loved for years now are by Paravine over on DeviantArt, and they are a free download. I have linked them below. However, if you don't use a program that can take in ABR files, they're super easy to make. All you need is a bunch of dots of varying sizes as the alpha. You set the spacing very low and set the opacity and flow to pen pressure. And that's pretty much all there is. You can vary the alpha for different effects, but it's basically just a bunch of dots stamped really close together to give you that hair stroke effect. Now, it's all well and good having high quality texture brushes, but they only work as well as you can work them. And with hair, it is a strange dichotomy in that hair acts as individual strands and also as a single object at the same time. The key to achieving that look is being very strategic with where you place your texture. So we have our bands of light and our shadows already in place. We're going to grab a texture brush and only place the texture at the edge between the highlight and the shadow. So we're going to pull some shadow into the highlight areas and pull a bit of highlight into the shadow areas, essentially marrying the two by creating a textured midtone. Now, just so it doesn't look like individual bands that are like woven together, you can take a tiny bit of the shadow and run it all the way across the highlights. Just very tiny strands though, we still want to maintain most of the separation. What this does is basically make it look like the hair is so shiny and smooth that the highlights and shadows are reflected strongly enough for them to completely lose texture. The only place you do see texture is in the midtone. I'm going to apply that texture to all of the bands of light that we've painted, and here's what we have after step number 3. There are 3 very specific final touches that I like to add to my characters when I paint their hair, and no matter what style you paint in, these steps will help your hair look more detailed and just add that final polish. The first is to add stray strands to the silhouette. With one of the hair texture brushes, or any round brush really, I'm gonna grab a dark to mid-tone and create some stray hair around the outer edges. What this does is basically break up that silhouette, adding some much needed smaller shapes and also some texture to the outer edges of the hair. When the silhouette is completely flat, if you then add values and lighting but no stray hairs, it kind of looks like a flat surface with a photo texture like printed onto it. We want our hair to have form and depth, so we're gonna create a bit of edge detail around the outside of the silhouette. Where possible, try to keep these stray hairs underneath your rendering because you don't want to accidentally paint over any of that beautiful value scale that you've just created. I especially love this trick for fringes because it makes them look super choppy and messy, and I live for that look. The second finishing touch I like to add is a bit of color dodge right in the center of those bands of highlight. I tend to grab a fairly dark desaturated tone just to avoid it looking way too bright and out of place. Set the brush to color dodge and gently airbrush a bit of light right in the middle of that highlight. It really enhances that light and adds some value and color variation within that highlight tone. I prefer to keep most of the color dodge on one area of the highlight just so it's not too messy and that the lighting setup makes sense. So we're not going to color dodge every single band of highlight that we've already painted, mostly just the ones right at the top at the crown of her head. And finally, and this is literally just me being extra, I love to add a little bit of glitter right at the center of that highlight that we just painted. Make sure the brush size is tiny though. If it's too large, it's gonna end up looking like dirt or dandruff. But I like adding just a touch of very tiny glitter to the highlight. It just feels all sparkly and magical, and that's like my whole vibe. You can also add bits of very subtle glitter in the dark shadowy area just to complete the look. And there we have it. There's our even better hair. Well, I hope this video has helped you guys maybe take a look at how you can render hair a little differently. Now, this is the workflow that I generally follow, so even if you don't follow everything step by step from this video, I do hope you got some value out of it. If you have enjoyed this video and found it helpful, then please do let me know by giving it a big thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button because it helps the channel out so much. If you want to see tutorials on more curly hair or a bunch of different hairstyles, leave that in the comments below because I will be happy to make one for you. Also, I want to remind you guys one more time that the next couple of videos on this channel are gonna be the paint over series, so if you'd like your name in the hat for that, then please come join the Discord. The link is in the video description. We have a whole channel for where you can submit your art for the paint over series. And finally, if you want to watch even more of the Even Better series, I will leave a little playlist linked up here. We don't have too many quite yet, but we have a couple on there already, so check that out. And with all of that said, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye!